Okay, Beseda. So now the Parsha Shiur, if you take a look at the second handout. So Parsha's Lech, Lecha, we'll try and do 3 items on tonight. It's a bit ambitious, we'll see how we get on. But the first idea is a beautiful idea I saw in the Meshech Chochmah. Who was the Meshech Chochmah? Just as by way of introduction, Rabbi, whenever he said a from Meshech Chochmah, he always says the following story. The Meshech Chochmah was Rabbi Simcha. Rabbi Simcha, HaKohen of Dvinsk. He wrote the Or Sameach, and he wrote, which is on the Rambam, and the Meshech Chochmah is on Chumash. Now here what Rabbi always mentions, we know that the wife of Rabbi Simcha was Chaya. Oh, see, you know her name was Chaya. What was the name of the wife of the Vilna Gaon? What was the name of the wife of the Chofetz Chaim? Or the name of the wife of the Rambam? We don't know, right? But we know Rabbi Simcha's wife was Chaya. Why? Because he told everyone. Yeah, through his writings, don't know why Chaya. Why did he tell everyone? So this is the story. He's 23 years old. He's an Ilu. He's very tudach at the Meshech Chochmah. And he was known to be a budding Talmid Chacham. And he gets married. And after a few weeks of married life, his wife Chaya realizes that he's no ordinary guy, and she says to him that listen, you're cut out for a special destiny. I'm prepared to manage the house and to take care of the finances, to run the shop, whatever they had. You go Motzei Shabbos, straight after Havdalah, you go to the Beis HaMedrash, you sit in the Ezras Noshim, you sit and learn, and you come back Erev Shabbos. And I'm happy to accommodate that. And he was agreeable to it. And he went in as a 23-year-old budding Talmid Chacham, and he came out of that Ezras Noshim, age 37, as one of the Gedolei Hador. So it was 14 years of intense, and he says the whole Zuchus was because of his wife Chaya. So I always mention that, I often mention it when we say Avot of the Chofetz of the Meshech Chochmah, because I think it gives a bit of background to this. Now, take a look. This is a very, very interesting insight that he makes. In this week's Parsha, Avram Avinu is assured that he's going to have lots of brachas and he's going to get Eretz Yisrael for him and his descendants for all time. Take a look at the Pasuk, because there's something very interesting going on. The Pasuk says, V'Hashem Omar el Avram, Sonna einecha orei. Lift up your eyes and see the land. Min hamokum asher tzashom, tzafona v'negba v'kedma v'yoma. All directions of Eretz Yisrael. Ki eskol ha'oretz asher tzoroya lecha etneno. This entire land I'm going to give to you, ulezaracha, and to your children, adolam forever. V'samti ezaracha ka'af ha'oretz, and I'm going to make your children as numerous as the dust of the earth. Hashem yuchul ish limnois es af ha'oretz gam zarachimone. That your children will be as impossible to count as the earth, the dust of the earth. Kum hisalich ba'oretz la'orkol rochbo lefkilecha etnena. Now, if you explore these psukim, you see 2 things going on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham on 2 occasions that he's going to get the land, Pasuk Tesvav and Pasuk Yud Zayin, but there are differences. In the first Pasuk, it's Lecha etnena ulezaracha. It's to you and to your descendants, but yet in Pasuk Yud Zayin, it's just Ki lecha etnena. No mention of descendants. Second problem, in the first case, when it says I'm going to give you the land, it says, Se'ei eino einecho re'ei. Look at the land and see it, and then I'm going to give it to you. And then, in Pasuk Yud Zayin, on the second occasion, it says, Kum hishalich ba'aretz, go walk in the land, la'arkol l'rachbo ki lecha etneno. So why is it when the first instruction is to look, and the second instruction is to walk the land? So, the Meshech Chochmah makes the following point. I saw this in Rabbi Bernstein's new sefer. Emmanuel Bernstein's got a lovely new sefer on Chumash and Bereshis and Shmos, and he brought. This is where I saw this Meshech Chochmah. The Gemara in Baba Basra says that when Avram Avinu walked the land, he was actually koiner it. That's a form of acquisition. If you think about it, it's a very interesting thing. How do you actually acquire something? So if you want to acquire a food item from a store, there's mashicha, there's all different forms of kinyanim, all different types of acquisitions you can make. What about real estate? What about property? How do you acquire property? It's not a movable item that you can pick up, you can do hagbah, you can do mashicha, you can, all different types of kinyanim. So how does that work? So one of the ways is to display ownership. Like a chazaka, you sort of display ownership of it, like a balabayas displays ownership of his land. So you've bought it, but you actually live in it. And one of the ways you display ownership is by working the land or walking the perimeter of the land. So says the Gemara in Baba Basra in the second box there, Desanya, halach ba la'arka la'rachba, if a person walked the breadth and the length of the land, kana makam hiluchay. Rabbi Eliezer says that walking the land is a way of being koiner it. What's his source? Says the Gemara in Baba Basra, Daf Kuf Amud Aleph, my time is Rabbi Eliezer, dichsiv, kum hishalech ba'aretz la'archa l'rachba ki lecha etnena. So you see that Avraham Avinu's very walking on the land was a form of acquisition of the land. Moreover, the Gemara says in Bab Metzia that something which is hefka, which is ownerless, by merely looking at it, that could constitute a form of acquisition. Now, that's Hakdama number one. Hakdama number two. There are two aspects to Eretz Yisrael. There is a physical aspect and there's a spiritual aspect. The physical aspect is that we live there, and that is, you dwell there as a nation. That is one aspect of Eretz Yisrael. The second aspect is a more spiritual one, which is only available to Klal Yisrael when we are living there. Now, given all of that, that's the intro to the Meshech Chochmah. Let's take a look at the Meshech Chochmah. Yitochin. It is possible. I'm the third box on the sheet. If you're listening online, please email me j.golker@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. Yitochin. Ki habata behefka koine. The Gemara says in the end of Bab Metzia that looking at something is a way of acquiring something which is hefka. Kiven she'ein the koni lacherim, because it doesn't belong to anybody else, and therefore I can look at it and I can be koiner it. V'hinei. Hazuchus shehoy leknanani, the zuchus that the Knaanim had in Eretz Yisrael, hoyrak kinyan peiros. Kinyan peiros means I own the fruit of the tree, but not the tree itself, which means a temporary acquisition. So the Knaanim were there on a temporary basis, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give it to Avraham Avinu and to Klal Yisrael. U'kamosh pirish Rashi, reish bereshis, v'haguf ruchonis, but the actual guf of the land has a spiritual quality to it, hares HaKadosha. Lo he bezeh kinyan l'shum adam, and no one had yet acquired that spiritual capacity of the land. Lochein Omar, shezeh yikne, second paragraph, beriya bilvat. Therefore, Avraham Avinu, when he acquired the spiritual capacity of the land, he did that through looking, because no one had yet acquired it. It was hefker, as it were. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, Sonoi necho re'ei, look, because that's how you're going to be koina, the spiritual connection of Eretz Yisrael to Klal Yisrael, which currently is hefka, and you will acquire it merely by looking. V'yeh lezara ad olam, and that is going to be for you forever. Even though the land may be physically overtaken, but that spiritual quality of the land is unique to Klal Yisrael. Because it's a kedusha which applies originally and for all time. However, for the physical, temporary acquisition of the land, which at the time it was given to the Knaanim, I can't be koiner by looking at it because there's somebody else living there right now. It's not hefka currently. So therefore you need to do an act of acquisition to actually walk the land and be koiner the physical land from the Knaanim. But that's not going to be for your descendants forever. Because there have been times over history where we've lost Eretz Yisrael physically. We don't dwell in the land. We haven't been there the whole time. Unbelievable. That's why it says Lecha. So in other words, what's the Meshech Chochmah saying? He's saying, what are our two questions? Why is it that you've mentioned the descendants, the Zaracha, in the first pasuk, not the second? Why is it in the first pasuk it says to be koiner it by looking at it, and the second by walking it? The answer is there are two elements to Eretz Yisrael. There's the physical and the spiritual. There's the Gashmi, there's the Ruchni. The physical, you can't be koiner by looking because there's someone there now. It's not currently hefka. So there you've got to do a Maisa Kinyan of walking in the land. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, walk the land. Now that is just for you, because that is temporary. That's just for now, so long as you're actually in the land. But once your descendants are there, maybe they'll be thrown out of the land, someone will overtake it, they'll force them out. So therefore it says in the Pasuk, Ki lecha etnena. But the spiritual capacity of the land, that currently is hefka, you can acquire that by merely looking at it. And therefore the Pasuk says, Sonno inecha, to see the whole land, because the spiritual, currently ownerless aspect of the land is there for the taking, and that's for you, ulazarcha ad olam, because that's only available to Klal Yisrael. So you see that with the concept of breaking up the physical and the spiritual, the Meshech Chochmah is able to explain the slight nuances in the Pasuk. Okay, fine, let's move on. Avram is called Avram Ha'ivri. How many times in the whole Torah is Avram called Avram Ha'ivri? The answer is once. And in this week's Parsha. When? When the 4 kings overpower the 5 kings, Vayovai Hapolit, this is a person who escapes from the battle zone, the refugee comes, Vayaged LaAvram Ha'ivri. And he comes and tells Avram Ha'ivri. Why is he called Avram Ha'ivri? So the Ksav Kabbalah brings the Medrash that there are 3 reasons why Avram is called Avram Ha'ivri. But Bereshis Rabbi Issa, Sheshleisha Deus Batam Shem Ivri. 3 reasons. Ha'alef, the first reason is, Shehu Shem Mishpacha Lios Mibnei Bonov Shel Ever. He's a descendant of Ever, and therefore Ivri is a family name. Habeis, Shehu Shem Mekomi, it's a location, it's a place. Lios Me'ever Hanar Shehu Medaber B'Loshen Ivri. So it's Ever Hanar, he's from there. That's the second one. V'das Shlishis, and the third opinion is, Kol ha'olam kula me'ever echad, v'hu me'ever echad. That the whole world is on one side, and he's on the other side. That means theologically, conceptually, philosophically, in outlook in life, the whole world think one thing, and Avraham Avinu is me'ever echad. Now, fine. So those are the 3 reasons why Avraham is called Ha'ivri, either the family name, the location, or sort of ideologically. The difficulty is, why is he called Avram Ha'ivri here? Of all the times that Avram is called Avram, many times in this week's Parsha, and even in the end of last week's Parsha, why is he called Ha'ivri, Dafka in this instance, when the refugee, the polit, comes and says, your nephew Lot has been captured by the 4 kings, quickly go save him. So, listen to this Ksav HaKabbalah. Look at the top of the next page. B'shar Mekoimos, Lo Yehuzka Rak Shem Avram Levado. In all other places, it just says Avram. V'kan Sirif Gam Shem Yichus Ivri. But here, he's also told the Shem Yuchus, the Shem Ivri. Why? Ki Rak B'china Zu Hisoira Hapolit Lahagid Hadova Elav. Because it's only through calling him Ha'ivri that will encourage, incentivize Avraham to go and save Lot. Why? Yosu Ivri. Shehisoira Lahachzik Be'emunas Achdus Elokus. Listen to this. There's a lot going on here. There isn't time to explore it fully, but the Rashi Prakim. Avraham Avinu, we're all familiar with the story, right? He takes his father Terach is an idol worshipper, so he's got the shop. So one day, Avraham Avinu, as discovering HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he takes the idols and he destroys them all apart from one. He takes the club, the baseball bat, and he puts it in the hand of one of the idols. Yeah, we're all familiar with this from primary school. And Terach comes back annoyed, fuming that his idols have been destroyed. Who did this? And little Avram says, it was that idol over there. Right? It's comical. So he says, what are you talking about? Yeah, he can't do that. Doesn't that prove my point? So his father is so incensed, he takes him to Amrophel. He takes him to Nimrod, who throws him in the Kivshon Ha'ish. Imagine, his own father takes him to Nimrod, and Nimrod throws him in the Kivshon Ha'ish. Chazal tell us that Amrophel is Nimrod. Who is Amrophel? Amrophel is one of the 4 kings. They have just overpowered the 5 kings, and they've also taken Lot. This rescue mission to take back Lot is not just a rescue mission for his nephew, but it's an ideological battle between Avram and Nimrod, between idolatry and monotheism, and recognizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. So why would Avram want to get involved? I mean, the Ksav of the Kabbalah says, if you carry on looking, Avram was not interested in battle. He wasn't particularly interested. No one else wanted to fight Nimrod. These 4 kings were very powerful. The only thing that would talk to Avram was that let's continue this ideological battle of Kivshan Oesh. This is the battle of idolatry against the realization of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. So therefore they said, Avram, you're Avram HaIvri. Aren't you the person who is on one side of the world and the whole world is on the other side? He's playing to his sort of theological, idealistic soul to say to him, you've got a responsibility to go and save Lot, because this is a continuation of this ideological battle. Now, there's more to say on this Ksav Kabbalah. Please God, maybe another year to see how it fits into the Psukim, because there are other things going on over here. But I thought it was a fascinating Ksav Kabbalah. Why Dafka, Avram Ivri, the one time he's called Ivri, is Dafka in this week's Parsha, because, says the Ksav Kabbalah, that's what encourages Avram Avinu to go and save Lot, because it's more than just saving Lot. It's sort of round 2 with Nimrod, who is Amrophel, to go and to battle with him ideologically. Okay, let's press on. Now, this idea I heard from Moshe Hauer from America, who, in the name of Reb Tzadok, I found the Reb Tzadok, it's in Divrei Soifrim, Ois Tezayin, a fascinating piece. We know Moshe Rabbeinu has 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. It's interesting to note, the only other Eliezer we know is Eliezer in this week's Parsha. Eliezer Eved Avraham, this very enigmatic servant of Avram Avinu. Now, take a look. Look at the second box in paragraph 3. Which means after the battle of the 4 kings and the 5 kings, and Avram Avinu goes and he saves Lot and he's victorious over the 4 kings. HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to Avram. Al tira Avram anochi mogen lecha. I am mogen loch. I am going to protect you. Scharcha harbe ma'od. You've got a huge amount of reward. Vayom Avram Hashem Elokim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu matiteni. What can you give me already? V'anochi holech hariri. I'm childless. Uven mesek beisi huda mesek Eliezer. And my only descendant, my only heir, as it were, right now is Eliezer. Why did Avraham Avinu call his Eved Eliezer? Is he naming him? What was that about? Why did he call him Eliezer? And moreover, why did Moshe Rabbeinu call his second son Eliezer? Was he naming him after Eliezer Eved Avram? Now that would be a curious thing to do, because Rashi in 2 weeks' time, in Parshas Chayesora, when this is Eliezer Sedra in Parshas Chayesora, when he's sent to go find the shidduch for Yitzchak, remember the pasuk? It says, "Ulai lo Lecha isha." Maybe the lady won't want to come back. So Rashi notes that the word "ulai" is spelt choser. Instead of aleph vov lamed yud, it's spelt aleph lamed yud, which can read Eli. Says Rashi famously, Eli ksiv. Bas hoysel Eliezer, that Eliezer had a daughter. And he was trying to find a pretext that maybe Avram will let his son Yitzchak marry Eliezer's own daughter. That was his hope. Avram said it as it is. Beni baruch va'ata or, nothing doing. My son is blessed, your son is cursed. Ve'in or medabik bebaruch. Right? The shidduch is not compatible. So if Eliezer is cursed, it would seem unlikely that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to name his son Eliezer after an Eved who is cursed. So why does Moshe Rabbeinu name his son Eliezer? What is in this name? So let's take a look at this amazing Reb Tzadok. Says Reb Tzadok, bottom box, Ein liyehudi lihisyayish mishum davar. The essence of a Jew is that he cannot and should not give up hope about anything. Yiush. Yiush means to be hopeless, to helpless and hopeless, to just give up hope. Ein liyehudi lihisyayish mishum davar. Bein beinyone haguf, whether it's a physical matter, Kamosh Omer, the Gemara says in Brachas Daf Yutam Aleph, afilu cherev chado al tzavoro, even if a sharp sword is on a person's neck, al yimone me'arachamim. A person should not give up hope from rachmanos, from mercy from Hashem. So he shouldn't give up hope in physical matters, bein binyone hanefesh, or in spiritual matters. Afilu nishtakeya lemokum shenishtakeya. Even if a person has stooped very low. And he sinned in a situation about which Chazal say that he's beyond hope and that tshuva doesn't work. Or tshuva is very difficult. Where he's just sort of slipping and sliding in the matters of this world. There's some sort of addiction or who knows what. A person should not give up hope. Lomar, to say that I can't pull myself away from this. There's no concept of Yiush. There should not be a concept of Yiush for a Jewish person. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu can help however desperate the situation is. Now, he proves it. It's a longer piece, but I've just taken a few bits. If you think about it, the very building, the creation of Klal Yisrael, Avram and Sarah was Zakenim. He was 100. She was 90 at the end of this week's Parsha. No one would believe they're going to yet have children. Yeah, a friend of mine told me once that they hired a Rabbi to learn Chumash with his kid. The kid was 6 or 7 years old. And it was one of the first times they met, and my friend told me that he was over, he was listening from the door, just, how the lesson was going. And he was teaching him this week's Parsha. Oh no, sorry, it was the next week's Parsha. And he wants to tell him the whole Parsha about how Sarah was told that she's going to give birth, and Sarah laughed, and so he says, before we start learning, he said to the 6-year-old, he says, your Bubba, she's an older lady, she says, I just want to tell you that Miss Hashem, she's expecting a baby. And suddenly this kid burst out laughing, right? He thought it was so funny. And very good, okay, now let's learn Chumash. Yeah? And to bring home the nace of what happened. We take it for granted. Avram and Sarah in their old age. Yeah, but he just brought it home a little bit. So Avram is 100 years old, she's 90 years old. The whole creation, the whole construction of Klal Yisrael came about at a point where it was almost beyond hope. V'chein ha'yeshua d'la'osid, the ein bein David bach, and that's how it's going to be in the future. We're going to feel at a point where it's beyond hope, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin Samach Zayin Amud Aleph. And that's when Moshiach is going to come, when we feel totally hopeless. Last paragraph. V'Avram Avinu alav hashalom, Rosh ha'umah, she'posach dovah, he is the one who initiated, she'lo lisyais mishum dovar, that he didn't give up from anything. He didn't feel this hopelessness. Dovar she'kashenishba loit, v'kvan nisyashu kulam elhatzel. Loit had been captured. Everyone else had given up hope. I'm not going to fight the 4 kings. Forget it. We've lost him. The king of Sodom said to Avram, look, you take the prophet. We've given up hope. All the other kings had given up hope of ever winning and getting their loot back. And therefore Avram Avinu was koiner it. And he went with 300 men to go after the 4 kings. The Gemara says in the Nedarim Daf Lamed Beis, who are 318 men? Of course, Eliezer is Gematria 318. Avram Avinu takes one servant, goes to these 4 mighty kings who have just overpowered the 5 kings, and he's going to do battle when everyone else has given up. Etc. Avram Avinu represents the concept of 318. What's 318? The concept of I never ever give up. The gematria of Yiush, says Reb Tzadok, is 317. Yud, Aleph, Vav, Shin, 317. Eliezer represents the ideology of the confidence over Yiush, that 318 beats 317. That I never give up. You think things are impossible? Things are beyond hope? That's when Klal Yisrael is created. That's when Klal Yisrael is saved. That's when the Geula comes in future. So Eliezer represents the concept that I never despair, and hope always overpowers hopelessness. And therefore, Avram Avinu called his Eved Eliezer to represent this ideology that I never give up. says the Medrash, says Reb Tzadok, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu named his second son Eliezer, as the Pasuk says. You look at the first box, number 3. Vayikach Yisro Chosem Moshe Siporo Eshes Moshe Achashlucheho Veshnei Boneho Asher Shem Hoechod Gershon V'Ger Yisperes Nachriya V'Shem Hoechod Eliezer. Why? Ki Elokei Ovi Be'ezri Vayatzlein Micherev Paroi. Moshe Rabbeinu has just been informed on to the authorities, to Paro. He's going to be killed. They take the executioner, the Medrash tells us, and they're going to cut his head off, and his neck turns to marble. He calls his second child Eliezer, Ki Elokei Ovi Be'ezri. It was beyond hopeless. My neck was literally on the line. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves me. Eliezer, Vayatzlein Mecherev Paro. He calls his kid Eliezer not after Eliezer Eved Avraham, but for the same reason that Avraham Avinu named his Eved Eliezer. Eliezer represents the battle of 318 over 317. The battle of hope over hopelessness, that we never despair, however desperate things seem to be. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu called his son Eliezer, to remember that message, and so to Avraham called his Eved Eliezer. Okay, so just to summarize the 3 ideas that we've discussed this evening. Number 1 is acquiring Eretz Yisrael, that beautiful Meshech Chochmah. That there are 2 aspects to Eretz Yisrael. There's the physical and the spiritual. The physical is temporary. And because there was a nation there, Canaan was in the land, therefore you needed an actual physical acquisition. You had to walk the land. But that's only a physical temporary acquisition whilst Klal Yisrael are there, and therefore it's kilachayit neno. But the spiritual acquisition, that was yet hefka, and therefore you could look at, you be koiner it by looking at it, son na'inecho re'ei, and therefore it's for you, ulazaracha, and for your children for all time. That's a special haftacha for Klal Yisrael, that we have the spiritual connection to Eretz Yisrael. The second idea, why is Dafka Avram called Ivri? The one time in the Torah he's called Ivri is in this week's Parsha. The answer is, as the Medrash says, there are 3 reasons, but the third reason is because it's ideological. That the whole world, at one side, Avram thinks different. And therefore he's turning, he's sort of imploring on the ideological motive to save Lot, to battle again with Nimrod, and to show that his ideology of idolatry is wrong. And then the third idea of why Moshe Rabbeinu named his second son Eliezer is not after Eliezer of Avraham, but it's for the same reason that Eliezer was called Eliezer. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved Avraham, saved Moshe, and the principle of never giving up, and the principle of 318 over 317 of hope over hopelessness. Okay, wish you well. Thank you.